In relationships, not all mistakes are forgivable. Some behaviors are red flags, subtle or overt signals that reveal manipulation, lack of respect, or toxic intent. Niccolò Machiavelli, the master of human nature, teaches us that human behavior is strategic, and wisdom lies in recognizing patterns before they harm your value or emotional well-being. In this video, we're going to reveal 8 dangerous behaviors that no high-value man should ever forgive in a woman, and how to recognize them before they undermine your life, confidence, and emotional mastery. Let's begin with the first and most crucial warning sign.
Point 1. She betrays your trust repeatedly. Betrayal is not a one-time mistake, it's a pattern. According to Machiavelli, trust is the foundation of all relationships. Once it's broken repeatedly, no man should continue to forgive because every act of betrayal chips away at your authority, respect, and emotional stability. Examples of betrayal: sharing private details about you with others, lying about her intentions or actions, emotional or physical infidelity. Psychological insight: repeated betrayal signals a lack of respect for boundaries and a willingness to manipulate. Forgiving her repeatedly teaches her that your boundaries are negotiable, reducing your value in her eyes. Actionable advice: recognize patterns of betrayal instead of one-off mistakes. Respond decisively, end the relationship, or enforce strong boundaries. Avoid rationalizing or making excuses for her behavior. It's a red flag, not a misunderstanding. Imagine you confided in her about a sensitive personal issue. Days later, you find out she shared it with her friends as gossip. Forgiving her once may be understandable, but if this behavior repeats, it's a clear indicator of her disregard for your trust and emotional safety. A high-value man knows that tolerating repeated betrayal diminishes his power. Trust is currency. Once devalued, it cannot be restored fully. Point 2. She consistently disrespects your boundaries. Respecting boundaries is the core of any high-value relationship. Machiavelli emphasized the importance of recognizing limits, both your own and those of others. A woman who repeatedly ignores or violates your boundaries is signaling a lack of respect for you as a person, your principles, and your emotional space. Examples of boundary violations: pressuring you into actions you're uncomfortable with, financial, emotional, or physical; ignoring your personal space or decisions; testing your patience intentionally by disregarding rules you set. When a woman disregards boundaries, it's often a test to see how much control she can exert over your emotions and behavior. Forgiving this repeatedly conditions her to push further, diminishing your authority and self-respect. Actionable advice: clearly define and communicate your boundaries early. Observe her response, respect, or violation. If she repeatedly ignores them, detach or remove her influence from your life. Imagine you tell her that you need time alone to focus on a project. Instead of respecting that, she repeatedly interrupts, complains, or manipulates the situation to get attention. Forgiving her once may seem reasonable, but if it happens regularly, it shows she doesn't value your priorities or autonomy. Power in relationships comes from clarity and respect for limits. Allowing repeated boundary violations signals weakness. High-value men protect their emotional and strategic space. This is non-negotiable. Point 3. She uses manipulation to control you. Manipulation is one of the clearest red flags a high-value man should never tolerate. Machiavelli understood human behavior as a strategic game. Some will attempt to influence, coerce, or control others to gain advantage. A woman who frequently manipulates your emotions, decisions, or actions is actively undermining your autonomy and power. Examples of manipulation: guilt-tripping you to get her way. If you really loved me, you would. Emotional blackmail to influence decisions. Twisting facts or conversations to make you feel wrong or insecure. Manipulation is a conscious or subconscious attempt to control your behavior. Forgiving it repeatedly trains her that you can be influenced, weakening your authority and emotional stability. Actionable advice. Recognize manipulation patterns early. Don't excuse them as miscommunication or emotional moments. Respond with calm clarity, not defensiveness. Call out the manipulation if necessary. Protect your autonomy. Consistently allowing manipulation destroys respect. Imagine she wants you to spend money you've budgeted for yourself, and she says, "If you cared about me, you wouldn't hesitate." A man who ignores manipulation stays grounded, refuses to yield to guilt, and maintains boundaries. Forgiving repeated manipulation only signals weakness and encourages further attempts. A high-value man protects his mind and decisions as sacred territory. Emotional manipulation is an attack on your authority. Respond strategically or disengage. Never forgive repeated attempts to control you. Point 4. She publicly humiliates or undermines you. Machiavelli taught that reputation is power. In relationships, a woman who intentionally or repeatedly humiliates, belittles, or undermines you in public or even in private reveals a dangerous lack of respect for your value. This behavior is a red flag no high-value man should ignore. Examples of public or private undermining: making sarcastic or degrading comments in front of friends, family, or colleagues, dismissing your achievements or ideas to others, exposing personal vulnerabilities to make you appear weak. Public humiliation is a tool to test boundaries, assert control, or manipulate social perception. Forgiving this behavior weakens your authority and self-respect. Over time, it can erode your confidence and influence. Actionable advice: never tolerate repeated public or private humiliation. Address it immediately with calm authority. Maintain your boundaries and dignity. If the behavior continues, remove the person from your life. Protect your reputation. High-value men understand that self-respect is non-negotiable. Imagine she makes a joke about your finances or personal struggles at a social gathering. A reactive man laughs nervously or defends himself awkwardly, losing status in the process. A high-value man calmly asserts, "That's not appropriate. Please respect me." Repeatedly allowing this signals weakness. Your social image is part of your power. Allowing someone to diminish it repeatedly undermines your influence. High-value men protect their reputation fiercely. They never forgive habitual undermining. Point 5. She lies consistently or withholds the truth. Honesty is the cornerstone of trust and respect. Machiavelli understood that deception is a tool of power, but when it is used against you repeatedly in personal relationships, it becomes a red flag that cannot be ignored. A woman who lies consistently or withholds important truths is actively undermining your ability to make informed decisions and protect your emotional and strategic well-being. Examples of consistent lying or secrecy: hiding interactions with other men or key details about her life, twisting facts to avoid accountability or manipulate outcomes, giving half-truths to mislead or control your perception. Repeated dishonesty signals either a lack of respect or a desire for control, or both. Forgiving lies teaches her that you can be deceived without consequence, which diminishes your authority and value in her eyes. Actionable advice: observe patterns of dishonesty rather than isolated incidents. Call out lies calmly but firmly. Protect your decision-making space. If the deception persists, detach or remove the person from your life. Imagine she tells you she's at work, but is actually meeting someone else socially. The first time, it might be forgivable, but repeated incidents of concealment show a lack of integrity and respect. A high-value man recognizes this as a serious boundary violation and acts accordingly. Trust is a form of power. Repeated dishonesty erodes that power and opens you up to manipulation. High-value men do not forgive habitual liars. They understand that honesty is non-negotiable for a functional, respectful relationship.
Point 6. She plays constant emotional games. Emotional games are subtle manipulations designed to test, control, or destabilize your feelings. Machiavelli understood that human behavior is often strategic. People use emotions as tools to achieve their goals. A woman who repeatedly plays emotional games is signaling that she prioritizes control over respect, and no high-value man should tolerate this behavior. Examples of emotional games: silent treatment to punish or manipulate you, overreacting to minor issues to provoke guilt or anxiety, giving affection inconsistently to keep you uncertain and dependent. Emotional games create confusion, undermine confidence, and erode clarity. Forgiving this behavior teaches her that instability and manipulation are acceptable, which decreases your influence and emotional authority. Actionable advice: recognize patterns of emotional manipulation rather than isolated incidents. Maintain calm composure, do not react impulsively or emotionally. Respond strategically. Set boundaries or remove yourself from repetitive toxic cycles. Imagine she suddenly stops speaking to you after a minor disagreement, expecting you to chase, apologize, or prove your loyalty. A reactive man panics or over-explains. A high-value man observes the behavior, maintains emotional control, and responds deliberately only when appropriate, signaling that he will not be manipulated. Power comes from emotional mastery. Allowing repeated emotional games undermines your influence and presence. High-value men do not forgive habitual manipulators. They protect their emotional energy and strategic position. Point 7. She shows a pattern of selfishness over the relationship. Machiavelli emphasized that human behavior is guided by self-interest. In relationships, a woman who consistently prioritizes her own needs, desires, or convenience over mutual respect and shared goals is signaling a lack of loyalty and alignment. High-value men recognize that habitual selfishness undermines trust, partnership, and long-term emotional stability. Examples of selfish behavior: making decisions without considering your feelings or priorities, expecting constant attention, support, or sacrifice without reciprocation, avoiding accountability while benefiting from your efforts or resources. Repeated selfishness indicates a person is more focused on short-term gain or personal comfort than building a healthy, balanced partnership. Forgiving selfish patterns encourages entitlement, which erodes respect and diminishes your influence in the relationship. Actionable advice: observe recurring patterns rather than one-off selfish acts. Communicate boundaries and expectations clearly. If she ignores them, take note. Detach or disengage if selfish behavior becomes habitual and toxic. Imagine she consistently cancels plans that matter to you to pursue her personal whims, yet she expects you to drop everything for her. A reactive man may repeatedly apologize or accommodate, signaling weakness. A high-value man recognizes the imbalance, asserts his boundaries, and prioritizes relationships that reflect mutual respect. A high-value man understands that partnership is based on alignment and reciprocity. Habitual selfishness is a threat to trust and influence. Forgiving it diminishes your authority and teaches exploitation is acceptable. Point 8. She constantly disrespects or undermines your values. Values are the core of your identity. Machiavelli taught that a man's principles are his strength. Once compromised, his authority and influence diminish. A woman who repeatedly disrespects or mocks your core beliefs, morals, or ambitions is signaling that she cannot honor you or the relationship. This is a behavior no high-value man should ever forgive. Examples of undermining your values: mocking your career, passions, or life goals, pressuring you to act against your principles for her convenience, dismissing or belittling your moral or ethical beliefs. Disrespecting your values is a power move. It tests how much of yourself you're willing to sacrifice for her. Forgiving this behavior repeatedly trains her to push boundaries and diminishes your self-respect. Actionable advice: clearly define your values and communicate them. Observe how she responds. Does she respect them or constantly challenge and dismiss them? If she refuses to honor your principles, detach immediately. Compromise on values is never worth temporary comfort or affection. Imagine you are dedicated to building a career or a disciplined lifestyle, and she mocks your dedication or pressures you to abandon your goals for her convenience. A reactive man may try to justify himself or accommodate, gradually eroding his standards. A high-value man, however, maintains his principles, communicates his expectations clearly, and ends relationships that consistently violate his values. Your values define your power, presence, and long-term influence. Allowing repeated disrespect signals weakness. High-value men protect their core identity at all costs. These behaviors are non-negotiable red flags. The 8 behaviors we covered, betrayal, boundary violations, manipulation, public undermining, dishonesty, and emotional games, are not minor flaws. They are warning signs. Forgiving them repeatedly only teaches that your respect, authority, and emotional stability are negotiable. A man of power and wisdom acts strategically. He observes, assesses, and responds with clarity. He does not tolerate repeated violations of trust, boundaries, or dignity. He protects his emotional energy, reputation, and autonomy above all else. Remember, words, gestures, and actions are all signals. The ability to see beyond appearances and interpret intent is the ultimate weapon of a high-value man. He who allows repeated offenses diminishes his own power. Preserve your boundaries, protect your integrity, and never forgive what undermines your authority. By internalizing this wisdom, you rise above manipulation, recognize danger early, and maintain control over your life, your emotions, and your relationships.